Hello, science students. Okay, so a couple things I wanted to go over today. Some of you have already taken the volume and density quiz, and many of you did have problems with that. So I am going to make an exception just for that quiz. Usually we don't allow retakes for the quizzes, but if you write to me and send me a message, or you can even comment under this video if you want, that you would like me to reset your score. I'm going to do that just for that quiz because we're starting off. A lot of people are getting used to learning online, so you might not have realized that you didn't fully understand the material before you took the quiz. If you're happy with your score, that's fine. You don't have to redo it. So, and if you hadn't done it yet, then even better, because you definitely should listen to the information I'm about to show you before you take the volume and density quiz. So some people are surprised about how much math is actually a part of the science, especially when you get up to the higher levels, like the class that we're doing now, and then getting into the high school classes. Math is a big part of science, but don't let that worry you, because sometimes people have anxiety about math, but this is not that complicated as long as you just take it as a step-by-step process and don't rush through and don't get ahead of yourself. So a couple things about density in general. So what is density? And these were things in the lesson. I'm just going to quickly review them for you. So density is the degree to which something is compacted, or the quantity of mass per unit volume. So that's why we have this formula, which you're going to be using, D equals M over V, or density equals mass over volume. So it's important for you to understand why we're doing it that way, because then sometimes the answers that you get will make more sense if you understand what it is that you're trying to accomplish here. So, and then the definition of volume there is the quantity of three-dimensional space enclosed by a closed surface. So for example, like you might think of a 2-liter pop bottle. So the volume of that pop is 2 liters. It's how much space it takes up in that bottle. And then the mass is the quantity of inertia, or resistance to acceleration, possessed by an object. So some people were also confused about that, about mass versus weight. And so that is the definition of mass there. So I've got a couple example problems that I'm going to do. So while we're going through these, a good thing to do is to pause and try to do it yourself before you go through and see me do the explanation, because then you can see the explanation and see if you did it right or not, a way to test yourself. Okay, so the first one, calculate the density in grams per milliliter of 30 milliliters of solution with a mass of 120 grams. So in science also, using units and labeling your answer with units is very important, and you'll get points off if you don't do that. So this is a unit for density, grams per milliliter. So for this one, okay, so first thing you want to do is identify which is the mass and which is the volume, because then you'll know what you're dividing by what. So for example, many people missed the question on the quiz about density because instead of dividing mass by volume, they divided volume by mass. And I know it's a habit, like a lot of times students will just take what's easier. Like if one number is 16 and the other one's 2, they'll divide 16 by 2 to get 8, because that's easier to do than to divide 2 by 16. But you gotta be able to divide 2 by 16. That's just the way it is. Okay, so here we go. So which one is the volume? It is the 30 milliliters. And you can tell in this situation just by the units which one is the volume and which is the mass. The mass is the one with the grams unit. Okay, so then a good habit to get into is to write out your formula first. Density equals mass divided by volume. Then you substitute in the numbers that you have. So in this case, we have a mass of 120 grams. I'll put G for grams. Keep your units on all the time, and then you won't forget to include them at the end. Divided by 30 milliliters. So now we do the division. So a fraction is a division problem. We're all starting at different levels, so I'll just explain some things that you might already know, but it's always a good review. So this is saying 120 grams divided by 30 milliliters. So 120 divided by 30, some people might be able to do that in your head. You might have to use the calculator. I'm just going to write it out here so you can see it. So as a long division problem. 30 going into 120, I already know because you don't even have to pay any attention to these zeros. This is the same problem as 3 divided by 12. So 30 times 4 is 120. So we have no remainder. So then we know that the answer is 4 grams per milliliter. So hopefully you did pause and work out that problem before you saw me work it out, and then check to see if you got it right or not. Okay, the next one, hopefully you can see this. It says calculate the density in grams per milliliter of 12 milliliters of solution that has a mass of 6 grams. Okay, so again, we write out the formula, density equals mass divided by volume. Here we're identifying the mass. We know it's the one that's in grams, right? The 6. So the mass equals 6g for grams over, where is the volume? It's right here. It's in milliliters. So that, if you remember my example about the Pepsi bottle, the 2-liter pop bottle, and that can help you remember, volume is often measured in milliliters. Not always, but in this case, it will be. Okay, so over 12 milliliters. So here, I can just tell you right off, so I want you to go ahead and try doing that problem like I said, before you press play to see the answer, but you know, we're not just going to see 12 and 6 and say, oh, it's 2, because 12 divided by 6 is 2. No, because the 6 is on the top. The 6 is the mass, and you're dividing the mass by the volume. So here we want it to be 6 divided by 12, okay? And so you can reduce this as a fraction if you want to get 1/2 or 0.5. Or if you put it in your calculator, it's just going to say 0.5. Because 6 divided by 12 means that the 12 is on the outside of the division symbol when we're doing long division. So, so that means you have to add a decimal point, a 0, and you still get 0.5 as our answer. Okay, so those are 2 examples, but if you have, more issues with this, you can always watch this again, make sure you understand each step, or if you have particular questions, like I said, if you put a comment under this video, then there might be other students who have the same questions, so don't hesitate to ask, because we had a summer break, and like I said, we all come from different backgrounds, so there's no question that's too simple. You just ask me anytime, and that's what I'm here for. So and when you're ready, if you've already taken that quiz and you want to take advantage of that exception and redo that volume and density quiz, you just let me know, all right? And once we get these things down at the beginning, it is going to get easier. So that's why it's a good idea to slow down, make sure you understand everything, because if you don't understand it at the beginning and you just keep going, it's just going to get worse. So that's why you want to stop right now, make sure you understand everything and slow down, and just don't try to race through, because that's not going to be helpful to you for your learning. Okay, I hope everybody has a great day. I'll talk to you later.